And
Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to something else. Something else, Daddy.
This is Nickel Matan, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to something else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
welcome to episode number 228 of Something Else. Feast your hair holes on this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action from September 17th, 2003. My name is Aria, and joining me as always is the Michael Shane to my Chris Sabin. It's Cindy. Cindy, if you understood that reference right away, I will give you 10,000 half pennies. Even that, I don't think I'm going to give you $50. I will give you several half pennies.
That's okay, Arya. You knock him out, I'll just steal your pins the whole time.
Well, that wasn't even what the reference is, but this is NWA TNA episode number 63. Why is it episode number 63 and not 62? Because last week, the episode we did not do is episode 62. For the same reason the Special X show counts as an episode, last week's episode counts as an episode as well. So, yes, this is episode number 63. Now, I guess we'll start off. Well, actually, before we get to that, so a little bit of real life stuff. We did the show, the Super X Cup show, like 3 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the first time we've talked and recorded a show in 3 weeks. Now, I'll tell you what my plan was. My plan was, hey, we're 2 weeks ahead. So if I just keep watching one episode a week, I'll always be 2 weeks ahead. And I can, not just catch up a little bit, but just like in case there's a week where I just throw in the towel, I don't have to force myself to watch the fucking show or not. Now, that was the plan. Cindy asked me, when did I watch this week's show?
When did you watch this week's show?
Last night.
Now, here's the question. Ask me when I watched this week's show.
Well, you usually text me while you're watching it, so I'm going to say this morning.
That's exactly when I watched it. And I just finished it because I was busy watching football.
Are you ready for some soccer? Oh, you meant the other football.
Right. But nice Simpsons reference. Plus,
Let's go, Buffalo.
We also had to just gaze in the beauty of Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs fans eating a bunch of shit again.
I'm happy. The Bills have a 2-game lead on the Chiefs for the number one spot in the conference. Yeah. So go us, go us, go us. Anywho, this is a big week news-wise for our friends over at TNA. Do you want to know what's happening over in Nashville?
No, what's going on?
So you don't want to know?
No, I don't know what's going.
I said, do you want to know? And you said no.
Yes, I want to know what's going on.
Okay, great. So Jeff and Jerry Jarrett met with Hulk Hogan this week. Because, yes, it is September of 2003, meaning that somebody is about to fly himself halfway around the world to hit somebody else with a foreign object. Now, the thing is, Hogan had his falling out with Vince a few months ago over the Mr. America gimmick, and that I forget exactly how it was supposed to go, but they were supposed to build to a match with Hogan and Vince on the SmackDown pay-per-view that Zach Gowen ended up doing instead. And it was going to be Vince's hair versus the mask of Mr. America. And, well, Mr. America was not a fan of how that was going to go, which probably tells you what was supposed to be the finish of that match. Um, but so he's having a falling out with WWE, but still wants to get, in wrestling because, he's got that New Japan show coming up in a few weeks. However, most figure that the big things that are preventing him from joining TNA are that A, he is never going to appear in the Nashville Fairgrounds Arena, and B, he kind of has a lawsuit out against the head writer of the company. Um, and most people also figure that C, he's using TNA to try to get back with WWE since WWE has WrestleMania 20 coming up next year. And, Hogan being on the 20th anniversary show would be a big deal. But spoiler alert, he is not on that show.
No, he
Now,
doesn't show up until next year's Mania,
yep,
which would be WrestleMania 21.
which will be the real 20th anniversary, despite what I just said a second ago. The 20th WrestleMania was not the 20th anniversary. So what did I just say one of Hogan's problems were? He does not like the head writer of TNA. He is in a lawsuit currently against the head writer of TNA. Well, there's one way to solve that problem. This week, TNA announced that Dutch Mantell has been hired to take over as head booker of the company. There's not an official start date yet. However, many feel that Dutch is going to be starting in the next week or so. And this show was by and large still written by Russo and Disco with a little bit of tweaking by Dutch. So that is the big one to keep in mind. They apparently offered Dutch twice as much money as whichever office in Puerto Rico he works for. I think it's the IWA. They offered Dutch twice as much as the IWA were offering to keep him. Now, so we'll see how this all turns out here over the next few weeks and months, won't we?
Oh, God. So now I know who's responsible for the awfulness that starts in November.
No, don't say that. Dixie's the one that signs Luger. Spoiler alert.
Oof. And Johnny Fairplay.
Yeah, yeah. That is all Dixie.
Yeah.
So remember a few weeks ago when we said that TNA was trying to sign all their guys to 1-year contracts with a second-year option at the company's discretion? Well, pretty much everybody has signed except for Conan and Shane Douglas, and they are considered to be soon, just tweaking out a few details. Some are surprised, and this is where the reference at the beginning of the show comes in. Some are surprised that Michael Shane and Chris Sabin signed since WWE had interest in both. They want to bring Teddy Hart in, but instead of flying him in from Calgary every week, they want to set up a deal where he'll come in for a few weeks at a time, but live in or near Nashville, so they don't have to pay to fly him in and out every single week. Which is going to tell you everything you need to know, because I don't believe Teddy Hart ever comes in again, except although I guess he may do one of those America X Cup things in February, but we'll see come February.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about that X Cup. It is legendary.
Which one? They had like 4 of them. It was Mexico versus the U.S., the winner versus Canada, the winner versus, I think, Great Britain, which from what I recall, that was the shitty one. And
yeah,
then they did the World X Cup in May sometime.
The one with Canada.
Really? I thought it was. I didn't hear anything bad about the Canada one. There's always the UK one that was a real styles clash.
Oh, there was some backstage stuff that happened during the winner versus Canada X Cup.
Oh, I mean, if Teddy Hart's there, and I'm fairly sure I know who is on the other team, so that kind of gives that away right there. Who'd have thought? Some people have giant egos. But anyway, on to the show. Again, this is September 17th, 2003. The show begins with a 2 or 3 minute video previewing the four-way tag team match that's going to be on this show. And I thought it was interesting because that match, and we'll find out in a second, that match is the opener. The main event of the show is the Raven Shane Douglas hair versus hair match, and man, oh man, it's like they kind of knew what they were about to have on the TV here. Um, but they didn't even mention it until after the opener when Tenay and West do their rundown of the rest of the show.
Yeah.
So with that, we go to our opening match, which is Three Live Crew, which is going to be BG James and Ron Killings with Conan versus Kid Cash and Abyss versus Sin and Slash with Jim Mitchell versus America's Most Wanted in a number one contenders tag team match. On their way to the ring, BG announced that next week, Three Live Crew will drop their new single. And I had to laugh when all the teams are coming out because every single one of them, Tanay's like, oh, this team wins all the time on Xplosion. This team wins all the time on Xplosion. This team wins all the time on Xplosion. And then it's America's Most Wanted, who are on winning pretty much every week. So I thought it was kind of funny that this match is between America's Most Wanted and three teams who win all the time on the show that nobody watches. And I know we've discussed this before, but to me, if you want to make Xplosion mean something, to some teeny tiny degree, because it's not going to mean something in general. But what you could do is remember when Dark and Elevation were a thing, and AEW would put the results at the bottom of the screen until it became ridiculous when they would do like 5 hours of job matches. They could be doing that. Xplosion's like 3 matches. You could run a crawl on the bottom saying last week on Xplosion, Three Live Crew beat Bill and Bob. Sin and Slash beat Joe and Smith. And who's left? Kid Cash and Abyss beat David and Chris. You know, but that would be too much, I guess. So nowadays, like I tell you, it's going to be a 4-way tag match, and you're expecting a party match. You know, you're going to expect a whole lot of dives with the people who are going to do dives. And don't get me wrong, we got a couple of those. But this was a tag team match that happened to have 4 teams involved. This was the most by-the-rules match America's Most Wanted has ever been in on this show. Everyone stood patiently waiting for a tag. But here's the one thing I liked. The one thing I really liked about this. This was a one-fall match. This was not an elimination match. At no point, until we got to the finish and everything went all crazy, at no point did anybody try to make a cover that there wasn't somebody from one of the other teams running in to break it up. And so no one was standing there with a thumb up their ass waiting for their next spot because they know the match isn't ending here. No, it's like, hey, look, we're trying to win this match, so we're going to stop those guys from winning the match. But we're going to let them sit there and beat the crap out of each other for as long as they want. But still, I really like that. This match did have a lot of constant action. We had a lot of tags in and out. And in many ways, it reminded me of the original Survivor Series matches. When we'd be doing those 5-on-5 or 10-on-10 matches, where it's like nobody was in the ring for more than 30 seconds. You were constantly tagging in and out. And so nobody was tiring, nobody was gassing, nobody was bringing the match down. It was constant action. And so we built to a spot where Abyss was in the ring and the other 6 guys not named Kid Cash teamed up on Abyss, and everybody hit him with a move, and he appeared to be out on his feet. And so Kid Cash slapped him in the face, which you might recall Kid Cash is his partner. And that fired Abyss up. And so Abyss did the big monster roar spot. Everyone goes flying. And then the finish to begin the unnecessary interference that pollutes most of the matches on this show. The finish of this match saw Kid Cash go for the moneymaker on Truth when Terry Taylor, of all people, ran in and gave Kid Cash a low blow, and then Truth pinned him with a sit-out suplex. Okay, I know Terry Taylor and Kid Cash had a thing for the last few weeks. Why did this match need interference? There were 8 guys in this match. 6 of them could be beaten. And Kid Cash, you didn't want to pin Kid Cash? Fine. Sin and Slash were right there. They could have been pinned. No one would have cared. And you could have lived to do Kid Cash and Terry Taylor doing an angle later on. Instead, we just have more unnecessary interference, and it brought down what I thought was an otherwise pretty good little match here. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10.
I liked it a little bit more than you did. I gave it a 6 out of 10. And I understood the Terry Taylor stuff because over the past couple of weeks, Terry Taylor was getting punked by Kid Cash. And unlike Larry Zbyszko or Bob Eaton or others, Terry Taylor is still active around this time. He's just doing spot shows like for USA Championship Wrestling, the Burt Prentice style territories. So Terry, I figure, will probably get a match. He'll probably be below average, but at least we could use that one title that you try to put on a Mid-South show, so you don't have to let it go in the ether.
Oh, don't worry. Terry Taylor is a little bitch every week on Mid-South. We don't have to worry about that ever.
Yep.
By the way, Bobby Eaton and Ricky Morton both wrestle a lot at around this time, so that's not even a thing either. But anywho,
yeah, Ricky Morton wrestles USWO, which is where Scott Hudson does general managing and commentary and all that good stuff.
But I mean, ultimately, they're both very active on the indies right now.
Yeah.
And anywho. So my point is, and this will especially become prevalent by, pretty much the end of the show, that still didn't need interference. There's, I think, 6 matches on the show. 5 of them have interference, and only one of them and I'll just say this. The main event is the one where you need 8,000 people running in. So if you have 8,000 people running in on the main event, you don't need people running in up and down the card, because then people don't care about the interference in the main event. It's just, oh, here's more interference. It becomes numbing to people. And now keep in mind, the main event needed a lot more help than 8,000 people running in. But we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Yeah, we will.
So Tenay and West running down the rest of the show. The lights went down. The bagpipe music came up. Yes, it is the return of Rowdy Roddy Piper eating a big slice of humble pie. He was on the show in December doing that famous promo with Vince Russo where he blamed him for Owen Hart's death. And then they did that promo of him in Portland in the Portland Wrestling Studio. And then he went to WWE in time for WrestleMania. And then he got fired from WWE a few months later. And Cindy, you take this one, because this was just when Vince Russo needs to come out to save your segment. It tells you everything you need to know about how great this Roddy Piper promo was.
Yeah, this was bad. Like, you would think one of the best talkers in the business could actually string 2 coherent sentences together. Piper couldn't do it this week. And when me and Aria, sometimes we chat about the show over direct message. I said this to her, quote, if you drink every time Roddy Piper said this is as real as it gets, you would die. Arya counteracts with, I thought you'd say take a drink every time he lost his train of thought. Both are true, and you know what? They would just be well preserved. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So he goes on meandering on and on about, you know, I've done this, and I've done that, and I want to beat up Russo because this, that, and the other thing.
He starts naming cities and countries, some of which he actually worked in, some of which, like Africa, he didn't, which, by the way, Africa is not a country, it's a continent, but still.
Thanks, Drew Carey.
He's ranting about stuff being posted about him on the internet and then being fired. And, like, Jesus Christ, dude, like, you know, everyone, it's a TNA staple for the first 15 years of their existence that any former WWE guy comes on this show and they have to rant about being fired by the other company. It's a TNA trope. And Roddy Piper is apparently no different than that. And it's like, again, Vince Russo had to come down to save the segment. And when we tell you that Vince Russo had to save the segment, that really tells you how bad and how off the fucking rails this thing went.
Yep.
Russo stood outside the ring on top of the announce table. And Piper kept daring him to get in the ring. Russo talked about how the last time they were there, Piper blamed him for Owen Hart's death. He said Piper... Oh, yeah. I say Russo saved it, and then I guess he made it slightly more coherent, because the next fucking thing he says is Piper's only here in TNA because no other promotion wants him. Way to bury your own company there, Vinny Roo. Way to bury your own company. Good job. He then says he hopes Piper's children starve to death and that TNA needs to decide whether they want Piper or Russo. And I'm like, can we have neither? And Russo says if he goes, so does AJ Styles.
Yeah,
so that is the story of this show, where TNA has to decide whether they're going to have Vince Russo on the show or Roddy Piper on the show.
And to be perfectly honest, this storyline and this segment ruin 2 matches. Not because they directly interact with the storyline, but if we cut something that could have been done in a pre-tape, like backstage or something like that, the 10 to 15 minutes spent on this segment alone, I could add this to 2 matches and make them much better than what we got.
See, the problem is you just said take it and make it a pre-tape. Then you just have a 10 to 15 minute pre-tape. So it wouldn't even make a difference.
Here's the thing. If I make it more coherent by having it be a pre-tape, like this could have been a Mike Tenay interview. And it could be cut up to 5 minutes. Russo comes out and says, hey, it's either going to, hey, Callis, it's either me or Piper.
Yeah, because the one thing Vince Russo's good at is being contrite and, saying nothing at all.
Right.
Yeah. If you were going to do that and edit out every time Piper went off on a tangent or lost his train of thought, the whole fucking interview would have lasted 12 seconds.
Good. That means I could have 5 minutes to the next match because, dear God, it needed it.
Okay, no. This match sucked. Even with the amount of time it had, 5 more minutes would not have made it less sucky. Sonny Siaki versus D'Lo Brown in a casket match, which is another one of those times where the stipulation ruined the match because 5 more minutes wasn't going to make it not a casket match. 5 more minutes would just make it 5 more minutes of them breaking the casket, getting all the crap insides of the casket all over the place. Oh, and by the way, the production people don't even clean it up. They just leave it on the ground and you can see it throughout the rest of the show. People having to
Yeah.
walk by the stuffing from the casket. That's what we would have gotten more of. So
No,
the
I
casket's
also
in.
blame. I want to add something to this before, and I think you're about to say it. The setup of this match sucked because in, let's just say, WWE, we're going to do a casket match. Where is the casket? It's outside the ring. What did the brain trust of TNA decide to do? Put it inside the ring, which makes it you cut off about a good chunk of the ring, and
You
you take out what you have, the little brawling on the outside, and also the effect of pushing your opponent into the casket and slamming it shut.
Well, it's TNA. Don't expect them to do anything right, do you? So the match
I mean,
begins.
yeah.
D'Lo has the match won in the first 30 seconds, but Trinity steps onto the apron. Keep in mind, I did not say Trinity interfered. I did not say Trinity distracted anybody. Trinity stepped onto the apron, and D'Lo just could not have that. And so instead of closing the lid and winning the match, which is the purpose of a match, he just stopped. Now this, because of the casket being in the ring, this was a weapon match. And I say weapon singular because the whole match was they kept hitting each other with the casket itself. And it tore up the inside of the casket, like I said. All the stuffing gets all over the place. The lid is one of those half a lid jobs that's basically like a legitimate coffin, like a legitimate casket. And so the coffin gets destroyed. And then finally, D'Lo gives Siaki a spine buster on top of the casket, and then does a highly protected frog splash on top of him. And honestly, D'Lo took most of that on his knees. Then, Siaki took it. And he had the match won when suddenly, out of nowhere, Jamal of 3 Minute Warning runs in, aka the future Umaga. He hits the ring for the attack. Jamal lays out D'Lo with a Samoan drop and a top rope splash before putting D'Lo in the broken casket for the win. Now, ironically, in a few months from now, D'Lo and Jamal will be part of the same group in All Japan, the very Japanese named roughly Obsess and Destroy, which is a very Japanese name for a stable. Sonny wins 2.0 out of 10.
If it had 5 more minutes, it was set up correctly, it would be a solid, okay, 3.5 out of 10. But instead, it's a 2.5 out of 10 because, yeah, I was putting you on. This match sucked. But at least it had some decent action, and Jamal's fantastic. Or as he goes by, I'm gonna spoil it, because we find out his TNA name next week. But you can see it on his gear. His name will be ECMO. Kind of like the clothing brand.
Or like his name before they made him Jamal.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's not here long, folks. Don't get used to him.
You'd be shocked how long he sticks around.
He's here till November, and then he does a one-off in next August.
Oh,
I don't
you're right. You
consider
do
that.
know.
Yeah, I don't consider that him here for a year. He was here for 2 months. Backstage, Scott Hudson is with Don Callis, who is on the phone, but Hudson, because he's a rude motherfucker, keeps interrupting Don Callis. Callis disagrees with the fact that Jerry Lynn tonight is getting a world title match, and he will not get a world title match if he has anything to do with it. Up walked Eric Watts, who said the world title match is happening whether or not Callis likes it, before flipping him off. Russo came up and pulled Callis away. You got to say, segments with Don Callis, Eric Watts, and Vince Russo were not on my bingo card.
Yeesh. It's just
So then,
no.
So then we go to the ring. By the way, Eric Watts, I think this was his only time on the show. He decided he had to flip off everybody on this segment here. We then go to the ring for a 6-man tag match, which I believe, yes, is the only match on the entire show that does not have interference by some statistical improbability. It is X Division champion Michael Shane, Nosawa, and Chris Sabin versus, I didn't even write who the third person was. Eric Young, Juventud Guerrera, and probably Frankie Kazarian. Yes, and Frankie Kazarian.
Yeah, it's Frankie Kazarian. By the way, we have a. Did you see when Eric Young came out? The name that got put up on the screen?
I did. The future 2-time Impact World Champion Eric Young came out, and his graphic called him David Young. Because, all the Youngs look alike.
Not yet. I mean, Eric still had hair until what, 2018?
Well, he went cray-cray.
Yeah.
Until he lost his sanity. So, is this the debut of the Michael Shane theme song?
Yes, it is.
So we had 2 debuts in this match, Eric Young and the Michael Shane theme song. Now, EY actually looked a little rough against Nosawa, but I would think ultimately that had more to do with Nosawa than EY, because as soon as Sabin tagged in and then Shane tagged in afterwards, EY was perfectly fine. The heels tried to triple team Kazarian, but Kaz managed to snap off a Hurricanrana on Sabin and a pair of DDTs on the others before tagging out to Juvi. Juvi looked good here as always. It's almost like the guy's trying to prove a point so he can get booked in this country again. We got a dive sequence that culminated with Sabin diving onto all 5 guys with a springboard cannonball dive. It's weird. I know Sabin won the Super X Cup, and he's really the future of the X Division and all that fun stuff. But it's weird to save the last and most spectacular dive for the heel, especially when that heel is Chris Sabin, the man who will go on to blow out his knees multiple times. Sabin debuted the Cradle Shock in the ring as he's I guess he's retired the Future Shock, and everyone hit their finisher on everyone. Finally, Shane pinned Young after Sabin hit him with Shane's X Division title belt. Kazarian was randomly hitting on some woman in the front row instead of trying to win the match. There was some blonde woman, and Kazarian decided now was the best time to go hit on the rats.
Didn't she remind you of like Chastity from WCW and ECW?
No, he didn't. But I didn't even look to see who this was.
I don't think she shows up ever again, so this is pointless.
Yeah. Exactly. So this was a fun match, and hopefully it leads to a more focused push on the X Division wrestlers and feuds. And like I mentioned earlier, this is the only match on the entire show without interference. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 6 out of 10. I have a visceral reaction to Michael Shane's serendipitous bullshit, which is going to show up a lot more in the next 4 months. But the action was good, and I can't complain about it. I honestly would like to see. I think if you put this match first instead of the four-way tag match, you maybe the crowd is a little bit hotter, but I don't think it mattered too much because the Piper segment kind of killed the crowd until the main event.
Exactly. It wouldn't matter what they put first, because as long as they still did that segment, the show is going to die regardless. So there we go. 1 second, my screen is suddenly being weird on me. There we go.
You have
all right. What was that?
You were kind of being a robot there for a second.
What if I was doing that on purpose?
Why would you want to sound like a robot on purpose?
Why wouldn't you want to sound like a robot on purpose?
Because I like having my humanity. I like having a soul.
Overrated. Anyway, Christopher Daniels cut a promo in a closet while holding a candle. He has what could best be described as altar boys, who stand with Metamorphosis and have been given their mission, which is to cleanse Jeff Jarrett so that next Wednesday there will be a great rebirth. And just to clear up any potential confusion, these are 3 grown adult men in the roles of the altar boys. So it's best to not make assumptions here. So without saying as much, I don't even think they say it later, but basically they're telling us that next week Christopher Daniels is going to wrestle Jeff Jarrett, which should at least be a good match.
Yeah.
I'm looking at what they announced for next week. That is not one of them. So out came Jeff Jarrett. Now, Jeff Jarrett may have had a touch of ADD this week, because he comes out and he announces, he demands that he wants a world title match right now. However, before right now happens, he says the TNA officials should choose Roddy Piper over Vince Russo. Furthermore, he told Christopher Daniels that he's the hunter and Daniels is the hunted before leaving the ring. So I guess he no longer wants his world title match right now.
Or not as badly as he wants Christopher Daniels' head on a pike.
Oh, I think Jarrett can't ADD this week. So backstage, Scott Hudson is now with Mad Mikey, and he's asking Mikey where his partner Shark Boy is. Because yes, Shark Boy is now teaming with Mad Mikey. Don't get used to it. Anyway, Shark Boy is standing right behind Hudson playing with an inflatable doll, which, I don't know, you think Hudson would notice or at least have the feeling that somebody's standing right behind him. But, well, Scott Hudson is a very one-track minded person here. So Mikey was so mad about this doll playing with that he not only broke the doll, he broke Scott Hudson's microphone. And I guess that explains why Scott Hudson doesn't do anything else the rest of the show except walk with Jeff Jarrett at one point. And we couldn't hear him because he doesn't have a microphone. So it made total sense.
Yeah.
So we then go to our next match, which were NWA World Tag Team Champions Simon Diamond and Johnny Swinger with main event Glenn Gilberti in their corner versus Shark Boy and Mad Mikey in a non-title match. And to show you just how used everyone is to AMW always being in the title picture I wrote World Tag Team Champions AMW with Glenn Gilberti.
That would actually be interesting.
Yeah, they are neither the champions nor managed by Disco Inferno. They did note that Shark Boys had some bizarre partners here in TNA, but cannot find a regular teammate. The problem is because Norman Smiley wanted, the money he was promised, and New Jack cussed on TV. As a reminder, Eric Young and Dusty, or Eric Young, well, maybe Eric Young did too, but Eric Watts and Dusty Rhodes later said the exact same cuss word on TV and did not get fired. Just throwing that out there. So Mikey and Sharky worked together decently well.
Yeah.
Shark Boy was always underrated, primarily due to his gimmick. But to be honest, without the gimmick, he probably wouldn't stand out enough to get bookings in major league companies. Simon and Swinger got the heat on Mikey. During the match was when we had the inset video with Jarrett walking around outside with Scott Hudson in abject silence because, again, Scott Hudson's microphone broke. Mikey avoided a pair of elbow drops from the champs and made the tag to Shark Boy. Boy gave Swinger the Dead Sea drop and would have had the win, but Gilberti put Swinger's foot on the ropes, and Swinger pinned Shark Boy after a problem solver. Nothing atrocious about this, but also nothing memorable. 2.0 out of 10.
I think I liked it more than you did. I gave it a 4 out of 10. And once again, just the often reminder, my scoring system is a little bit different than Aria's scoring system.
Pardon me while I throw something at Cindy every time she says that.
Well, I have to let our listeners, I have to remind them every so often.
No, you don't.
Well, you've said on the show you base it off of the star ratings.
No, I don't. And even if it is based off a star rating, so is yours.
No.
Everything is, yes, it is. Like, I hope you don't think I'm sitting here going, what would Dave Meltzer rate this match and base it off that? No, I base it off what I base it off what Aria Whitner, would rate this match. It's the same thing you are. We're just not saying stars after the thing. Stop telling people that we're different, because we're not. We rate it based on how we both feel about the match.
Well, I'm just
go ahead.
I'm more lenient to these type of matches. You know, something that doesn't outright suck is going to get, and something that is perfectly fine and average is going to get a perfectly fine and average score of a 4 out of 10.
This is a 3-minute enhancement match. There's nothing really to write home about, except we had to have more interference in this one too.
At least the interference made sense, and Gilberti was already out there, and he didn't want his guys to lose.
But the champion should not be losing to the bottom tier comedy team or needing help to beat the bottom tier comedy team.
Well, they're also cowardly heels as well. How many times did they need a title shot to win the belts? What, 14?
Well, it helps when you only have 2 teams who ever appear on the pay-per-view.
And I've also been watching a lot of Memphis lately, and it is permeating through the show.
I am shocked. Anyway, Jeff Jarrett was beating up the Altar Boys outside in the presence of Scott Hudson, so one of them fought Jarrett into the arena. I noted that Hudson's microphone was staticky because, again, Bad Mikey broke it, as Jeff Jarrett beat on Altar Boy number 3 up the steps, and then threw Altar Boy number 3 off the steps and through a conveniently placed table that was placed underneath the steps. Any thoughts on this?
Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett strikes again. I mean, he said he was good. This is one of the better Jeff Jarrett beat him up segments because he actually said he was going to do it and then do it. And it didn't feel too staged. It didn't feel like he wasn't supposed to overcome these odds, because these 3 you call them Altar Boys, I thought they were like worshipers. So there's nothing wrong with it, which automatically makes it one of the better segments this week.
And at least if you're gonna have Jeff Jarrett beating up three heels, it might as well be three random extras that are never on the show.
Right, because I don't think any of these extras have a match ever. Or maybe they have them on something that doesn't count, aka Xplosion.
I am positive that if you were to watch Xplosion sometime, you would see the three altar boys. Anywho, we then get, for no good reason, which, hey, if we're gonna have this match for no good reason, I approve of no good reason. It is the NWA World Heavyweight Champion AJ Styles randomly with Trinity instead of his boy Vinny Rue versus Jerry Lynn for the NWA World Heavyweight title. Let's be honest. Who doesn't randomly want Jerry Lynn to get a world title match on pay-per-view? And it's all good. So these two had great chemistry from day one of this promotion, and it was no different here. And watching this match just reminded me of how Jerry Lynn made AJ Styles last year, and how I keep mentioning, if you gave Jerry Lynn somebody for 6 months, like he did with AJ, they'd be an even better worker. Put him with Kazarian, put him with Shane, put him with Sabin. Do the AJ Styles feud again just with them. But we can't have that. We can't have nice things. They mentioned that the last time these two wrestled was back on November 27th, which was a match won by Jerry Lynn. So, if only this match had also been announced last week, but, or even 2 weeks ago during the X Cup thing, which, during the X Cup. But by the way, who were all the people that got the thing on AJ during that show? Jarrett pinned him, Chris Harris laid him out, and D'Lo laid him out. None of those three people are Jerry Lynn, which is my one complaint about that. Anyway, so Lynn had the advantage until they fought outside the ring. Trinity distracted Lynn better than she distracted D'Lo, and AJ gave Lynn a slingshot catapult into the ring steps, which busted Lynn wide the fuck open. Now, I know Lynn has bled before, but Lynn is not somebody who bleeds a lot, and he was bleeding a gusher here. West compared Jerry Lynn to Barry Bonds, saying that every year he just gets better and better. Now, I don't know this for a fact because I have not run a blood test on Jerry Lynn in 2003, but my thought is Jerry Lynn is not juicing up all the hell like Barry Bonds was at the time.
No, and don't get me wrong. I love a Jerry Lynn AJ Styles match as much as the next person, but wasn't this one like one of the worst ones? But that's still like saying it's still a really damn good match.
My exact review at the end is not as good as their 2002 matches, but still damn good. The worst AJ Styles versus Jerry Lynn match is still the best match on the show.
Yeah.
I don't want certain New York accented people to take this as a challenge, but it is almost impossible to fuck up AJ Styles versus Jerry Lynn. So Styles goes for a slingshot hurricanrana, but Lynn caught him and laid him out with a sit-out powerbomb. Now, here's where I had to laugh, because as I noted, Lynn is wearing the crimson mask. AJ is wearing white tights. So when Lynn gets done giving him the sit-out powerbomb, AJ's tights are covered in Jerry Lynn's blood, which sadly did not get noted by anybody. Lynn goes from the cradle Lynn goes for a cradle pile driver, but from the floor, Trinity pushed the referee into them, which shifted momentum to AJ. Shouldn't that have been a disqualification and a title change? If not, then it definitely should have been a minute later when Trinity yanked the referee to the outside while he was counting for Lynn. And then after more back and forth, AJ won with the Styles Clash.
And about the referee, who was that referee in the ring?
I imagine it was Rudy Charles.
Rudy Charles, one of the worst referees in the goddamn world.
Honestly, like, it's the same thing for everything else. Like, why didn't they bring back Scott Armstrong when they brought back BG? Because, Scott was a hell of a referee, and they got him and BG left at the same time when they tried to cut Bullet Bob's pay. But yeah. But I still gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
If it had 5 more minutes, I would agree with you. It'd be a 7.5. Instead, I have to give it a 6.5. It was a little bit rushed, and the Trin interference was a little too much.
Mm-hmm. By the way, we have a teensy tiny little bit of breaking news. Not that this is going to set the world on fire, especially since it's not going to. This doesn't get aired till Wednesday. But you saw that Andrade got fired yesterday from WWE, right?
Yeah.
Well, the reasoning, everything keeps coming out, but the most recent news, first reported by John Alba, was that there was a failed drug test, which was Andrade's second failed drug test, which would have been a 60-day suspension, which could have been what happened, because this has happened a lot of times where when people get the second drug test, they ask them to go to rehab, and when the person says no, they get fired instead. And that may have been what happened here.
I gotta be honest, I'm not gonna miss Andrade. Like, I didn't miss him when he left AEW. Like, I just don't see the appeal of Andrade, like, at all.
But by the way, the love of my life, Rhea Ripley, was in Worcester last night, and I apparently missed it. So, hashtag sad face. But from here, Vince Russo comes out to the ring to congratulate AJ on winning before calling out Don Callis. And banjo music began playing, which is definitely not Don Callis's music. And I would bet you dollars to donuts Don Callis was not 50 feet, was at least 50 feet away from the curtain to avoid accidentally going out during banjo music. Instead, it is the return of Dusty Rhodes. Dusty came out and cut a promo about AJ being world champion. Essentially, he was trying to get AJ to be like, hey, if we tell Russo to get the fuck out of here, will you at least stick around? You're the world champion. There's 700 wrestlers all around the world who want to be world champion. And so, dude, don't leave. He talks about Jerry Jarrett at one point. This is only a slightly more comprehensible segment than the one with Piper earlier. So Dusty told AJ to leave Russo, and AJ gave Dusty the bat that Russo had handed him. But of course, it's a swerve, bro. And AJ attacked Dusty. Dusty got a brief comeback until AJ hit him with the title belt. Roddy Piper ran out and tried to attack Russo, but he was stopped and literally, not figuratively, but literally dragged away by the red shirt security. And no one has ever fought the red shirt security as much as Roddy Piper did here. They may need to hire 3 or 4 extra red shirts for next week, in case they book Roddy Piper again. Finally, Jeff Jarrett chased AJ away. From here, they announced next week's lineup, which is Simon and Swinger versus 3 Live Crew for the tag titles, the debut of 3LK's new single, and Kid Cash versus Terry Taylor, of all fucking people.
The little bitch will actually be wrestling on... Is it possible that he will be wrestling on 2 episodes of something else in the same week because I think at this time he's still with Mid South.
Mm-hmm. He
and
is.
and he's going to be wrestling against Kid Cash. So over the span of 19 years, from 84 to 2003, Terry Taylor always and forever will be a little bitch.
Well, this happens quite frequently where stuff that happens on one show somehow bleeds over to the other shows. So, not a first, but still one of those head scratching type moments. It'd only be
Yeah.
more of a moment that only ever happens on this show is if Terry Taylor was to make a surprise random appearance on Mid South next week, which, well, he's the champion of television, so it'd be more of a surprise if he actually defended his fucking medal. He's been champion since June and has never defended it on TV. So there's that.
Wait, so Terry Taylor
Who
is
is
the
a little
TV
bitch.
champion,
Yes.
and the idea of the TV championship is to defend it every week on TV.
Not necessarily every week, but frequently enough.
He hasn't defended it in 13 weeks, give or take.
I lied. He had one match against Crusher Khrushchev on TV because that's when they did the Dr. Death heel turn.
And you'd say that would be in July.
So Terry Taylor has been TV champion since the June Superdome show, and he's defended the belt once on TV. Now, yeah. And before then, Crusher Khrushchev wasn't exactly setting the world on fire with title defenses, but he had two, I think. So, you know, this Mid South TV title, we're off to a rocking start here with it.
Yeah.
It's been around for 6 months. We've had like 3 title matches on TV. So to the back, where the red shirts, Russo, Callis, Piper, and AJ are all being held apart. Callis yelled to get Piper out of the building, which I guess we were supposed to believe was them making the decision over who was staying and who was going. Jarrett ran in and screamed at Callis and gripped him up, slammed him against the wall, but Ryan Wilson returned to drag Jarrett away. I would have been more interested in seeing Kevin Northcutt trying to single-handedly drag Piper away.
And Kevin Northcutt's the type of guy, the way he's built, he can actually do it.
Well, we saw Kevin Northcutt and Ryan Wilson unable to do it earlier, so who knows? The most entertaining part about Roddy Piper on the show was him fighting Richard security.
Yeah.
Um,
and this is going to be a highlight for redshirt security as well.
If you told me every week Roddy Piper was going to fight with the redshirt security who are going to keep trying to drag him away, and it never leads to a match, it's just every week the redshirts try to drag him away, I would watch every single week with a smile on my face. Just don't put them in a match and don't give Roddy Piper a microphone. But that's not going to happen.
No, because TNA doesn't know what they're doing.
So I guess I was wrong earlier because Scott Hudson did come back. He was now with Jim Mitchell and Shane Douglas because they aired a Raven Shane Douglas video then. And then was Hudson with Mitchell and Douglas. Mitchell said that they will put an end to the misconception of Raven being a violent messiah, and he can't be a messiah if his minions laugh at Raven's bald head. And then Mitchell mocks the recent Chris Jericho Kevin Nash hair match, saying the loser won't get a pretty little crew cut. Because that was the famous time when Kevin Nash showed up blonde on Raw and got a crew cut out of it.
Well, at least that crew cut looked good on Kevin Nash.
Then we get the match. It is Raven versus Shane Douglas with Jim Mitchell in a hair versus hair match. Now, this does have one of the most infamous moments in TNA history with the post match, with the hair cutting. And everyone pretty much knows how that goes. So let's see how the pre-post match goes, aka the match. So the match started slow, and this was really just the highlight of the match was the slow part of it. It picks up a little bit as they go into the crowd where the plunder came in. At one point, Raven had a fan hold up a chair so he could run Shane into it. Back in the ring, Raven locked on the Shininomaki, which is shockingly so much better than the one that Hercules is currently using in 1984 Mid-South. Both were bleeding, which, believe it or not, does not make the match any better. They fought over an abdominal stretch, so Douglas hip-tossed Raven over the top rope. And then, in case you thought this match was all right, it decided now was the time to go downhill. Shane Douglas began vomiting in the ring. And by vomiting, I don't mean he dry heaved. I don't mean that like he had a little spittle come up. This was not George Wells at WrestleMania 2. This was not the time Draws tried to puke on DOA's bikes on Raw and couldn't do it. This was actual, I am so winded, I am so out of breath, I am so out of shape that this is his first singles match too, I think. Like he's been here since June and has done all tag matches. And it's like this is his first singles match and he is so out of shape, so winded that he vomited in the ring that everyone still had to keep wrestling in, which I imagine everyone just loved. And by the way, they showed it once, and then it's like they figured, okay, that's probably the only time he's gonna do it, and then he does it again, and it was to the point that Tenay and West couldn't even ignore it. Like, so let's see here. Douglas pulls out a chain. I'm sorry, Raven goes and grabs a chair. So Douglas pulls out a chain and punches Raven with it, but Raven kicks out. Slash runs in and stops the referee from counting after a Raven super kick. A minute later, Raven went for a bulldog, but also knocked Slash into the referee. Stin ran in. CM Punk and Julio ran in. The problem is at this point, between all the plunder and the 6 guys in there was so much shit in the ring that Punk especially was tripping over himself to avoid running into anything or anyone else. The Raven. The referee woke up and Raven kicked out of being pushed through a table. Raven hit an even flow DT off the middle rope through the table when the lights went out. When they came back on, the referee and Raven were down, and in the ring was Vampiro, who dropped Raven with a DDT, which let Shane get the pin. And by the way, we talked about this a few weeks ago, because remember when they did that first angle where the hand of God magically came out of the SX locker room and like, he grabbed him like Abyss? It was like a foot taller than Raven, which was like, isn't this Vampiro? Vampiro was not a foot taller than Raven.
No.
Turns out the original plan was going to be Ricky Banderas, aka the future Judas Messias. But they realized that nobody would have known who he was, and so they didn't want it to be a popcorn fart of a reveal. And then it ended up being a popcorn fart of a reveal. Now, this match was bad. But for as bad as the match was, the post-match is where a bad match becomes legendary. Because nobody would remember this match without the haircutting. So Raven sat in a chair and let Jim Mitchell shave his head. And 2 things Jim Mitchell did incorrectly, and depending on who you ask, very much on purpose or by some bizarro accident that fucked things up. First of all, I think we've all seen people get their head shaved. You go front to back, you go with the hair, you know, it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. You go, with the grain there. Jim Mitchell did it backwards. He did it back to front. And if that wasn't bad enough, I guess he may have been worried about it not working on a live pay-per-view, so he wanted to make sure that he got it because he dug into Raven's scalp. And in one of the most graphic things you've ever seen on television, not just did Raven's hair come off, but so did chunks of his skin. Just it it, it was a scalping, legitimately. Like
Yeah.
this was like you know people compared to like shearing a sheep. Like that's how vile this was. And the fact, but apparently Raven really had it out with Jim Mitchell backstage. But the fact that Raven sat there like and let Jim Mitchell keep doing it once he started, like Raven deserves all the fucking credit in the world for that because that was I know I fucking couldn't have done it. And this motherfucker, like he scalped Raven. He's bleeding all over the place. Like I said, chunks of skin are coming off of him. It is just a very vile, very graphic visage. And TNA being TNA, they actually got one thing right. They just immediately went off the air. Like
Yeah.
there was nothing else you could say or do or whatever that could have put a more neatly tied bow on the top here. But
He also held the Clippers wrong.
yeah.
So the way he held it, it's you only hold it that way if you're doing back and you're going down. Because the way those clippers work, they work in a zigzag way to try to shear the hair. But when he was digging, and it's also supposed to be where the 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 tongs or the teeth are supposed to be pointed towards the hair, and you're shaving with with the teeth. He'd had it the other way around, and with the digging, that's how you got the scalping. James Mitchell, I think, said in various promos after that happened, said it was an absolute mistake on his part because he wasn't prepped on doing it. Because I don't think Jim Mitchell was ever part of a hair versus hair match, or he even knew how those clippers worked. You would think that, I don't know, go to Jim Bob's hair cutters, have take a job guy with take Slash or somebody get his beard trimmed, and Jim Bob would absolutely show you how to work the clippers. Pay him $20, and he'd show you how to do it. That's it, $20. Maybe comp him a couple free tickets to the show, and you're off and running. And we wouldn't have the incident. However, I am in total agreement. If we didn't have that incident, this match would be completely forgotten. Because it was, for a garbage brawl, not the best. And we had better garbage brawls just recently. And we're going to have better garbage brawls a couple weeks from now.
So 0.5 out of 10.
2 out of 10.
Oh, that was just bad match, memorably bad post match, vomit inducing post match. Like it was hilarious that Shane Douglas vomited during the match and didn't vomit during this part it culminated with Shane holding up the mirror so Raven had to watch himself get shaved bald. And suddenly, poor Raven. And another thing, Vampiro, I can't imagine Vampiro was here very long. I don't remember him being here at all, but I guess we'll see. Um, but I'll say this wasn't the worst reveal of a big surprise. Um, wasn't Magnum TA Mr. Wrestling 4? Not Magnum TA, Nikita. Nikita was
Yeah,
Mr. Wrestling
Nikita.
4. That was pretty bad. But yeah. So the show goes off the air there, and it's another mixed bag TNA show because it's like it was one of the shows I wanted to like, and there was a lot of parts of the show that I did like, and as always, they get weighed down by the other shit. Match quality, average match quality 4.0 out of 10, big drop from 2 weeks ago. Overall enjoyment 4.5 out of 10. Basically, what I said before. As always, the interference is repetitive, especially in situations where it's not necessary. Because if you're going to build a match around, or I'm sorry, if you're going to build a main event around six people interfering, maybe having interference throughout the show is overkill. And future build 4.0 out of 10 because while nothing super big got pushed for next week, there was nothing announced / built to that turned me off like it's been in the past, giving us an overall rating of a 4.17. Way down from last week's show, or 2 weeks ago show.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Because I think 2 weeks ago was one of the best shows we've ever watched, which was the Super X Cup tournament. And Wednesday Bloody Wednesday was just, like I said earlier, it was a garbage brawl, but it was a garbage brawl done very, very well. And the less said about Laz versus Mad Mikey, the better. And by the way, just a quick note on Laz. Brian Turner.
I like that we've somehow brought this back to Laz.
I actually watched some of Brian Turner's stuff on YouTube. Who's got NWA Worldwide, which is the Atlanta which was like Atlanta or something like that. And I actually got to see him work a match that was longer than a minute and a half. Makes me appreciate the Laz versus Mad Mikey match that we got that was only a minute and a half. This guy is absolute dog shit.
Oh, yippee. I'm so happy we only got a minute and a half of that shit. Anywho, that I think we can tie a nice little bow on this show.
Yep.
So we're back with I guess we get a Christmas break. But other than that, we are officially in the last year of these things. September 8th. September 8th, 2004. 51 weeks away.
And that's Jeff Jarrett versus Jeff Hardy for the NWA World Championship.
May the best Jeff win. All right. So that's that I will call this. That's gonna do it for this week's show. Anything you want, any video games or game shows you want to plug here before we wish the listener well?
I talked about this podcast that I'm going to be starting at the beginning of next year. Walking in Memphis is what it's going to be called. I'm talking with my co-host Brian Henniger, former Jeopardy champion and tournament champion semifinalist. And he's also local to the area, so this is stuff he grew up with. I'm going to try to get a pilot for October where we're going to watch 40 years ago Memphis. So we'll be watching something from like October 85.
Okay.
And it's going to be fun.
Is it? Is it now?
It's better than this shit.
Well, let's hope so. It can't get a whole lot worse. Anywho, so that's going to do it for this week's Fun Little program. Well, thank everyone for listening. Hope you all enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Whatever happened to Lord James Blears?